from London. The British government has collapsed in what can only be described as a full-scale constitutional crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's administration has officially fallen, torn apart by a sequence of events that have shaken Westminster to its very foundations. This is not politics as usual. This is the end of a government. And it began with a single extraordinary act by the future king. Prince William's 5-minute speech, already being called the address that ended a prime minister, has triggered one of the most dramatic political implosions in modern British history. In those brief, unscripted moments, the prince didn't just defy royal protocol, he detonated the political status quo. To understand how this began, we must look back to the spark that lit the fuse. Just 3 days ago, during a private dinner in Brussels, Prime Minister Starmer was recorded describing the monarchy as an outdated institution, a financial burden on working families, and a medieval symbol Britain must move beyond. He believed his comments were confidential. They weren't. Someone recorded them. That recording was sent directly to Kensington Palace. For Prince William, this wasn't mere political criticism. It was seen as a declaration, a direct challenge to the very heart of Britain's constitutional order. And so, last night, before a national audience at the Royal Variety performance, Prince William did something no senior royal has dared to do in a century. He abandoned the approved script. Standing beside the Princess of Wales, he looked directly into the camera and delivered a message aimed squarely at Downing Street. "There are those," he said, "who believe tradition is weakness. They are wrong. Tradition is the backbone of this nation, and anyone who attacks it attacks every single person in this room." The room erupted. 47 seconds of uninterrupted applause followed, but what came next was nothing short of political devastation. Financial markets tumbled. The pound nosedived. Government stability evaporated overnight. Westminster is now in open meltdown, and the question isn't if Keir Starmer is finished. It's what happens next. But behind Prince William's words lies a deeper anger, a righteous fury shared by many across Britain. To understand it, one must confront the moral contradictions at the center of Starmer's leadership. As the Prime Minister dined in Brussels, dismissing the Crown as a drain on taxpayers, British veterans, men and women who once served under that very crown, are struggling to survive. Take the case of James Morrison, a 73-year-old former Royal Marine from Portsmouth. After 26 years of service, Morrison now finds himself choosing between his medication and his groceries. "I fought for this country," he told reporters, "and now I can't even keep my home warm." His story is heartbreakingly common. Thousands of veterans, the very people who embodied the traditions Prince William defended, are facing the same cruel choices every day. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister resides in luxury at Chequers, his taxpayer-funded 1,500-acre retreat. Reports show he enjoys a heated indoor pool and meals prepared by private chefs, all funded by the public purse. Records also reveal that last year alone, he claimed over $17,000 in clothing expenses, designer suits, tailored fittings, luxury accessories. The contrast is staggering, and to many, morally indefensible. Even loyal Labour members are beginning to call it what it is, a betrayal of the people who placed their trust in him. And tonight, as Prince William's message continues to echo across Britain, Keir Starmer faces a political reckoning he never anticipated. His authority is shattered, his credibility gone. But the full extent of his excesses, particularly his personal spending, may yet prove even more damaging. Because what's been uncovered next will shock even his harshest critics. Stay with us, the details are coming up. And here's where the story takes an even darker turn. While British pensioners, the generation that built this nation, are being told to endure yet another round of cuts to their winter fuel allowance, newly obtained documents paint a damning picture of this government's true priorities. According to evidence published by The Telegraph, the Prime Minister's office spent an astonishing $43,000 on a single state dinner last month. Let that figure sink in. £43,000 for one evening. So what does $43,000 buy a government that claims to be tightening belts? The receipts tell the story. Imported champagne at $600 a bottle. Wagyu beef flown in from Japan. Gold leaf desserts costing more than most British families spend on food in 3 months. And the guest list? Not veterans. Not NHS workers, not the struggling families of Britain. Instead, foreign diplomats, corporate donors, and high-powered lobbyists. the very same class insulated from the hardship facing the rest of the country. Contrast that with the story of Sarah Chen, a nurse from Leeds working 60-hour weeks just to keep her hospital functioning. In a viral video seen by over 3 million viewers, she fought back tears as she described her reality. "I can't afford to fix my car," she said. "I take 3 buses to reach my shift, and this man, this prime minister, is spending my tax money on gold desserts for millionaires." That anger is spreading like wildfire. And it's not simply about the money, it's about values. It's about a government that appears to hold the people it serves in open contempt. Prince William didn't create that outrage. He gave it a voice. His speech captured the disillusionment of millions who've watched integrity in public life erode beyond recognition. In 5 minutes, he exposed the moral decay at the heart of Number 10, and, in doing so, unleashed a political storm unlike any in living memory. But then the unthinkable happened. Just as the crisis reached boiling point, the king himself entered the fray. An unprecedented intervention that stunned both Westminster and the palace establishment. King Charles III, a monarch who has maintained scrupulous neutrality since his coronation, shattered 70 years of royal convention with one extraordinary act. At yesterday's meeting of the Privy Council, typically a routine ceremonial gathering, the king stood, visibly furious, and delivered what insiders are already calling the speech that changed everything. His words were precise, cold, unmistakable. "The crown serves the people," Charles declared, "not political ambition." The room, sources say, fell silent, and then he added, voice like ice, "When politicians forget that truth, it is our duty to remind them." He didn't need to mention Keir Starmer by name. Everyone in that chamber understood who the message was for. This was not just a statement, it was a royal rebuke, the head of state openly censuring his own prime minister. But the revelation that followed is what truly changes everything. Multiple palace insiders, speaking to 3 separate outlets, have now confirmed that King Charles personally approved Prince William's speech at the Royal Variety performance, hours before it was delivered. This wasn't a rogue prince acting on impulse. It was a coordinated response from the highest level of the monarchy, the king and his heir, united. For Keir Starmer, the optics are politically catastrophic. When both the reigning monarch and the future king publicly signal that a prime minister has crossed a constitutional red line, that prime minister's position becomes untenable. Constitutional scholars are already comparing this moment to the abdication crisis of 1936, the last time the crown directly influenced the balance of power in government. But there's more. A deeper, far more explosive detail that mainstream outlets have hesitated to report. Sources close to the palace, individuals risking their positions to speak out, have confirmed that King Charles held a private, unscheduled meeting with the Archbishop of Canterbury just 2 days before Prince William's address. The contents of that conversation remain officially confidential. Yet one phrase has emerged, confirmed by multiple independent sources, and it should send a chill through every corridor of Westminster. Constitutional obligations in times of crisis. That line is not mere rhetoric. The Archbishop of Canterbury does not intervene in ordinary politics. His involvement signals that matters have reached the gravest constitutional stakes, where the relationship between crown and government itself may be under strain. This is no longer about protocol or pageantry. It's about the ancient balance of power that underpins the British state. And tonight, that balance has been shaken to its core. This morning, a warning came from one of Britain's most respected constitutional voices, and it couldn't be more serious. Professor Michael Reynolds, senior constitutional lawyer and advisor to multiple parliamentary committees, spoke to the BBC with visible concern. "If the king," he said, "is consulting the Archbishop of Canterbury about constitutional obligations, then His Majesty is preparing to exercise powers that haven't been used in generations." And what power is he referring to? The so-called nuclear option, the Crown's residual authority to dismiss a government that has lost the confidence of the nation. No modern monarch has ever invoked it. It is a constitutional safeguard, symbolic in nature, a relic of Britain's unwritten past. Yet, according to multiple briefings from Whitehall, King Charles is now being formally advised on how and under what conditions that power could lawfully be deployed. The mere possibility of that conversation has sent shockwaves through Westminster. Panic, real, palpable panic, has set in among senior government figures. And that panic has already spread beyond politics. The financial markets moved almost instantly. This was no gradual unraveling of confidence. It was a financial avalanche. Within minutes of Prince William's address, before the applause had even faded, the pound sterling dropped 1.3% against the dollar. To put that in perspective, such movements are usually triggered by wars, not speeches. Global traders understood immediately what had just occurred. Britain, long seen as one of the world's most stable democracies, had entered uncharted constitutional territory. For the first time in living memory, the government appeared to be at odds with the crown. Political betting markets went into freefall. The odds of Keir Starmer surviving as prime minister until the next election collapsed from a solid 68% to just 31%, all within 4 hours. International investors began offloading British assets at rates not seen since the Liz Truss crisis. By the time trading closed yesterday, the FTSE 100 had lost an estimated £17 billion in market value, wiped out in a single day. £17 billion gone, erased, because a prime minister misjudged both the people and the palace. But the market chaos was only the beginning. What followed was far more profound: the reaction of the British public. Social media erupted. The hashtag Defend the Royals trended globally for 11 consecutive hours, amassing more than 4 million posts in support of Prince William's stance. Even among younger voters, the very demographic Starmer once counted on, the tide had turned decisively toward the monarchy. Then came the internal polling, leaked this morning to The Telegraph. The numbers are catastrophic for Labour, a 14-point swing away from the party in just 72 hours. In traditional strongholds, Durham, Newcastle, Sheffield, support has all but collapsed. And last night, the digital outrage spilled onto the streets. Across Britain, spontaneous demonstrations broke out. Not the usual political protests, but large gatherings of ordinary citizens. In Manchester, over 8,000 people assembled outside the town hall, chanting for the Prime Minister's resignation. Similar scenes unfolded in Birmingham, Liverpool, and Leeds. And here's what matters most. These were not Conservative voters. These were lifelong Labour supporters. The working class of Britain, the backbone of Starmer's party, rising in anger against what they now see as a government that has betrayed them. Contrary to what some media outlets are suggesting, these protests were not orchestrated by opposition groups or wealthy donors. They were organic, spontaneous, the collective voice of a nation that has simply had enough. In Glasgow, 71-year-old Margaret O'Brien, a lifelong Labour voter, was filmed holding a handmade sign that read, "I voted Labour all my life, never again." Her voice trembled as she told reporters, "My grandfather fought in the Second World War. My father served in the Royal Navy. And now this government, my government, disrespects everything they stood for." That video has been viewed over 1 million times. Margaret has, in many ways, become the symbol of Labour's unraveling. Meanwhile, in Bristol, a city known for its progressive, anti-establishment politics, university students, the very audience Starmer hoped to appeal to with his calls for modernization, gathered outside City Hall chanting, "God save the King." One of them, 22-year-old David Park, summed it up with striking clarity. "I don't agree with everything about the monarchy," he said, "but attacking it like that, it's attacking Britain itself." Starmer crossed the line. And that's the truth of this political moment. When you've lost Margaret O'Brien in Glasgow and you've lost David Park in Bristol, you haven't just lost the argument, you've lost the moral authority to lead, and perhaps the future of your party itself. Inside Number 10, the situation has descended into what one senior official described as a full-scale meltdown. Downing Street, usually the center of discipline and composure, now feels, according to multiple insiders, like a cross between a funeral and a crime scene. Ministers who only days ago projected unity are now locked in shouting matches across corridors meant for dignified governance. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, known for her confrontational energy, reportedly lost her temper during a crisis strategy session yesterday afternoon, hurling a folder of briefing papers at a senior advisor and shouting, "This is your mess. You fix it." In the corridors of Westminster, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, once considered one of Labour's rising stars, was overheard telling a colleague in a hollow voice, "We're finished. The whole government is finished." Inside the party's encrypted WhatsApp channels, group names like Post-Starmer Planning and New Leadership Coalition have begun circulating, evidence of organized plotting to remove the Prime Minister with cold military precision. The question among ministers is no longer if they will move against him, but when. As for Keir Starmer himself, multiple sources describe a man on the brink. Sleep-deprived, pacing his office, surviving on caffeine and denial. One cabinet insider told The Times, "He's in complete denial. He genuinely believes he can survive this. He can't. His own potential successors are already moving." Chief among them, Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Her silence has become deafening. No interviews, no statements, no public appearances, but her team, according to Westminster sources, has already begun preparing briefing papers for a leadership transition. Everyone knows what that means. Even David Lammy, Starmer's most loyal defender, gave what observers called a political car crash of an interview yesterday, visibly uncomfortable, refusing to defend the Prime Minister's remarks about the monarchy. Political strategists have a phrase for that behavior, building distance before the collapse. And yet, amid all this chaos, there is one final revelation. A betrayal so profound it could trigger a general election within weeks. Leaked internal Labour documents, verified by multiple journalists, reveal that Starmer's team knew the Brussels dinner was being recorded. They knew his inflammatory comments about the monarchy would likely leak, and they proceeded anyway. If authentic, and senior Labour sources insist they are, this changes everything. Because it means this wasn't a gaffe. It wasn't an accident. It was a calculated political gamble. Starmer knowingly provoked a constitutional crisis, not out of ignorance, but out of ambition. He sought to cast himself as a bold modernizer, a leader willing to confront what he viewed as outdated institutions. But the gamble has backfired spectacularly. Instead of appearing courageous, he appears reckless. Instead of embodying progress, he has come across as divisive. And instead of capturing the next generation, he has alienated almost everyone. The optics of a prime minister deliberately goading both the king and the heir to the throne for political theater are devastating, perhaps fatal. If this narrative becomes accepted fact, and all indications suggest it will, Keir Starmer won't just lose office, he'll lose his legacy. He'll be remembered as the prime minister who tried to weaponize the crown for personal gain. And now the alleged smoking gun has surfaced. Multiple journalists have confirmed the existence of a memo, drafted 3 weeks ago by Starmer's chief strategist Morgan McSweeney. Its title, Modernization Through Conflict. The document reportedly outlines a strategy to engineer controlled controversy around Britain's traditional institutions, and at the very top of that list, the monarchy. If verified and made public, and insiders say its release is imminent, this would prove beyond doubt that the crisis engulfing Britain was manufactured, not accidental. It was planned, it was executed, and it has now backfired on a historic scale. Because British voters, whatever their politics, may tolerate incompetence, they may even on occasion forgive arrogance. But they will never forgive the deliberate, cold-blooded manipulation of the constitutional order for political advantage. And that, more than any leaked tape or speech, may be the decision that ends this government. The British public may tolerate misjudgment, they may even overlook arrogance, but they will not forgive a prime minister who engineers a national crisis purely to rally his political base. That, insiders now believe, is precisely the line Sir Keir Starmer has crossed. Within Labour ranks, MPs who have been quietly plotting in private WhatsApp groups now have the justification they need to act. The media, including outlets once sympathetic to Starmer, suddenly hold the evidence capable of finishing his premiership. And the public, already protesting in the streets, now have what they see as proof. Proof that their anger is justified and their demand for his resignation is legitimate. This is the smoking gun. This is the endgame. As Starmer's leadership implodes and Labour MPs maneuver for survival, the Conservative Party is seizing the moment like predators closing in on wounded prey. While chaos reigns inside Number 10, opposition leader Kemi Badenoch has stepped into the spotlight with what analysts are describing as one of the most disciplined and effective speeches of her career. It was everything Starmer's response wasn't: calm, measured, confident. Prince William reminded us all, she said, that some things matter more than politics: duty, service, tradition. The Prime Minister, she paused deliberately, would do well to remember those values. No dramatics, no populist outrage, just controlled authority. While Starmer appears panicked and erratic, Badenoch is projecting the image of a leader in command, statesmanlike, steady, unflappable. As Labour fractures and descends into civil war, the Conservatives are presenting a picture of absolute unity, and the data tells the story with brutal precision. New polling numbers released tonight are nothing short of catastrophic for Labour. Conservative support has surged to 38%, the party's highest level in 2 years. Labour has collapsed to 24%, its lowest standing since the bleakest days of the Corbyn era. For the first time since the last general election, the Tories hold a commanding 14-point lead. It is not a dip, it is a political implosion. Swing voters, millions who abandoned the Conservatives after years of chaos, are now flooding back, disillusioned and disgusted by what they see unfolding in Downing Street. Kemi Badenoch isn't just winning the political argument, she's winning the moral one. She's positioning herself as the defender of British values, of stability, duty, and national identity, while Starmer is increasingly viewed as the man who tried to destroy them for short-term political theatre. Even more telling is the silence elsewhere. Reform UK and Nigel Farage, despite their efforts to capitalize on the crisis, have gained nothing. Because the public doesn't want more disruption. They've had enough of chaos. They want reassurance. They want continuity. They want the familiar pillars of British tradition. And increasingly, they see that embodied not in Number 10, but in Kemi Badenoch, the woman now being described across Westminster as a prime minister in waiting. The next 72 hours will determine everything. Parliament reconvenes Monday morning. By law, the Prime Minister must face Prime Minister's questions at noon, a session that is already being called the most brutal in modern history. Badenoch will strike with precision, and Starmer's own MPs, the ones who once filled the chamber with applause, are expected to sit in absolute silence. The spectacle will be extraordinary, a sitting Prime Minister humiliated in real time, isolated and visibly defeated. But even that may not be the final blow. As of tonight, Westminster sources confirm that 3 senior cabinet ministers are preparing their resignation letters. Their plan, if executed, is to deliver them simultaneously. If that happens, if they go public together, the government collapses instantly. Its majority, its authority, its mandate, gone. A vote of no confidence, already being drafted by Labour MPs themselves, would become a mere formality. The question is no longer whether Keir Starmer survives. He will not. The only question left is whether the Labour government itself can survive him. Britain is watching this unfold live, a constitutional crisis, a political meltdown, a national reckoning playing out across every screen and social feed. It is being broadcast, analyzed, dissected in real time, and within hours the collapse of an entire government, once unthinkable, could be complete. This moment will be studied for decades. It will be remembered as the time a prime minister, blinded by arrogance, forgot one of the oldest truths in British public life. You do not attack the crown and survive. At the center of it all stands Keir Starmer, isolated, exhausted, and, by all accounts, finished. So now, the question Britain is asking is simple. Does Starmer resign before he's forced out? Or does the Labour Party move against him on Monday morning to save itself? Did Prince William's speech simply end a prime minister's career? Or has it triggered something far greater, the collapse of an entire government? What happens next? Tell us what you think and stay with us.